So we're going to talk about feeding for life stages in your horse. And we're going to start with pregnancy. Now, for the pregnant mare, she has to consume adequate nutrition because obviously she needs to maintain herself, but she also needs to have the nutrition that will allow this fetus to grow inside of her. But in horses, the majority of the fetal growth takes place the last 4 months or the last trimester of their pregnancy. So because of the slow growth during the first 7 months, the requirements for a pregnant mare are basically the same as a maintenance horse. If the mare is in good condition and receives adequate amount of energy, minerals, and vitamins, she'll be able to provide the appropriate level of nutrition for her fetus as well. So if you feed her as if she is on a maintenance feed, but pay special attention to her mineral balance, then she should be able to adequately grow this fetus and maintain herself easily. A pregnant mare should stay at a body condition of around 6 on the body condition scale. She can increase up to a 7 with no real bad effects. However, as they get higher up on the body condition scale score, then they can have problems with fat being deposited in the pelvic area, which can make delivery of the foal very difficult. So for the first 9 months of pregnancy, the mare requires about 3.5 megacalories of digestible energy per 220 pounds of body weight and about 8% protein, so a very low percentage of protein. The hay to feed ratio should be a minimum of 70-30, with hay being the most. Remember, she is a forage eater and your fiber-based diet is the most important. Now, if you're feeding good quality hay or she's on good quality pasture, you shouldn't have to worry about feeding this mare a concentrate at all. She's going to get all the fiber she needs, all the energy and nutrients that she needs as well from a good quality feed. You should have your ground tested to find out what the mineral content is in your hay or your grass in order to maintain that she is getting adequate minerals. But for the most part, if she is on a good quality feed, she should not have to be fed a concentrate at all. So why do we need to increase her feed at the 7th month or last trimester? Well, the foal grows the fastest during this time. And so the mare is going to have to not only maintain herself, but provide the extra energy for this growth spurt, the protein for the addition of muscle on the skeleton, as well as the vitamins and minerals for that skeleton and connective tissue growth. So she's also going to need extra energy to labor through to the delivery, and then for lactation, as lactation takes on a monumental effort for making milk, but we'll get into that in a minute. So during the final 3 months of pregnancy, your mare's megacalorie requirement is going to jump from 3.5 up to 4.0. Okay, and then she needs about 10 to 11% protein. This is protein that she can digest. This is not crude protein, this is quality protein. So you want to start increasing the quality and not necessarily the quantity of the feed from about the 9-month onward. And make sure that you do this slowly because you don't want to colic her or cause any other kind of digestive upset. Now, you do really need to keep the mineral balance at the forefront of your mind during a horse's pregnancy. And again, this is most important so that your horse has a good, strong foundation in his skeleton when he is born. During the last trimester, you also want to take your mare off of fescue pasture or hay if she's on that, as fescue can contain a mycotoxin that will cause her to abort her foal. So you want to replace that with something good quality but is not fescue. A pregnant mare about ready to foal should be in a body condition score of a 6 to a 7. Again, you don't want her to be any higher than that on the body condition scale because the fat deposits in the pelvic region can impede the birth and cause problems in which you may lose the foal and or the mare. And it is difficult to get a really fat mare to rebreed as well. So for your production purposes, a 6 to a 7 on the body condition score is the best for your mare. Now for lactation, the requirements are going to be high for water first. It takes a tremendous amount of water to make milk, but it also takes a tremendous amount of energy to make milk as well. I do not know the horse equivalent, but I do know that in a human woman it's about 800 calories a day just to produce milk. So with a horse producing anywhere from 3 to 4% of her body weight in milk daily, the mare's energy requirement is 28.75 megacalories of digestible energy a day, which is almost as high as an intense working horse. The mineral requirement for lactating horses will go up, especially with calcium, phosphorus, zinc, copper, iron, and magnesium. And of course, most of those are because the foal's bones are elongating and growing in diameter as well. So we need most of those minerals for the bone growth. They are also needed in the connective tissue growth. But the iron is also for, as the foal grows, his blood supply increases and he needs the iron in order to oxygenate the blood. The protein, and of course he's growing, he's making more muscle. And then of course vitamins are also necessary for bones to be built correctly, and also for the hormones and other processes in the body, such as metabolism of calcium, of protein, carbohydrates, and fiber to be done. And a horse can produce up to 4% of her body weight in milk daily. So if you think about an 1,100 pound horse, that's 44 pounds of milk a day. So her energy and water requirements are going to skyrocket. Now, how much she produces is going to be directly correlated to her body condition score. If she's in a poor body condition score, she's not going to produce that much because she won't have enough energy to maintain herself as well as lactation. The other thing you need to know is that after the second month, her milk production will start to decline. Mostly this is because the foal doesn't put as much demand on her after the second month. They're going to have their milk teeth in by then. They're going to start mimicking mom and eating grass and hay. And most producers will start to creep feed their foals during the second through the fifth month so that they don't have as much demand on the dams for the milk. Now, after about the fifth or sixth month, the foal does not have the demand on the mare at all. He is able to get by completely on grass, hay, and a creep feed. So the mares can be weaned at this time, and it is not a problem for the foal. Now, of course, as he grows also and he starts to run and be a baby, the protein requirements are high for this baby because he is laying down new muscle, he's growing and increasing his body mass, and that is mostly your protein requirements. Now, of course, your vitamins are needed for the proper laying down of your bone, and they're also needed for the hormones as well as proper metabolism of protein and carbohydrates and fat in the body. Now, your foal and your weanling, they need to basically be overfed in their protein, vitamins, and minerals, and a little bit underfed in their energy. And the reason for this is you want them to grow fairly slowly. Now, when we are feeding a foal and a weanling, we of course are feeding for growth. Their bone is elongating and laying down new bone part rather than having cartilage in the growth plates. The muscles are growing larger and longer to allow for his body mass growth, and then the connective tissue, of course, is elongating and growing stronger to put up with the demands of his body. Now, energy is needed for growth, as we know, so he's going to need a high amount of energy in his diet in order to do this. However, if you underfeed him a little bit for his energy requirements, that's going to slow his growth down so that the bones can keep up. Now, this is very important. If you push your horse to grow as fast as possible, he is going to grow faster than what his bones can support. How does this happen? Well, bones take a long time to properly lay down that matrix of bone so that he has the solid foundation for the job that you want him to do. Muscles, connective tissue, organs, all of that can grow at a much faster rate than the bones can, which will lead to problems later on in the future. So again, if you feed him a little higher in his protein, vitamins, and minerals, this is going to allow his body mass to grow, but it's not going to allow him to grow as fast as it possibly could, therefore allowing the bones to keep up with the rest of the body's growth. You want to keep your foal and a body condition score of a 4.5 to a 5. That way he is a little lean, he's growing well, he's got enough energy to grow, but he is not growing so fast that, again, you put undue strain on the structure or the foundation of your horse, which is a skeleton. In your weanlings, they need a source of essential fatty acids. This is vital for developing the brain and nervous tissue of the foal. They also need the correct copper-zinc ratio so that the bones will grow correctly, a proper ratio for calcium and phosphorus as well, so that those bones are growing correctly. The other thing is that as a weanling grows, his body weight will increase, and so you need to adjust your feed regimen for this. Now, the best time to do this is about every 30 days. Reevaluate his weight, his body condition score, and adjust your feeding schedule accordingly. You cannot feed your weanling colt the same at weaning as you do when he turns a year old, because he's just going to be that much bigger. And if you do this, then his body condition score is going to drop. It can possibly stunt him in his growth. Now, horses will generally catch up at some point, but some horses, depending on how severely stunted they are, could miss meeting their potential in size and height. Grass hay is the best choice for your weanling and your foal. Only up to about 20% of the hay should be provided as a legume. It's just a little too much for your baby horses, and so it should not be the cornerstone of their diet. You should feed them a grass hay. It's a much more well-rounded diet for your babies. Remember during the winter that your babies are not going to be getting adequate nutrition outside, so you need to maintain their body condition score and their diet for their growth, but you need to pay close attention to your mineral balance and your vitamins, and of course your energy. A good grass hay, and if you have to feed a feed ration, it should be one that is really high in fiber. So beet pulp, soybean hulls, wheat middlings, any of those types of feeds are really high in fiber and make for a great source of feed for your baby. This is so that he doesn't grow too fast, again keeping the skeleton on the same track with the rest of the body. So now your yearling to 2-year-old. There's not much difference between a yearling and a 2-year-old. However, 2-year-olds can more effectively process forages and may become fat on the same amount of concentrate as they had as yearlings. So if you're feeding your 2-year-old the same amount of grain as you're feeding him as a yearling, you need to assess his body condition score on a regular basis to make sure he's not getting too fat, simply because his digestive efficiency has increased in that year. A yearling requires around 12.5% good quality protein. A 2-year-old requires around 12% protein. So there's not a whole lot difference in the protein needs between your yearling and your 2-year-old. Now, they do require 19 to 21 megacalories of digestible energy a day, again because they're still growing. 900 grams of crude protein because they're still laying on that muscle and increasing the size and length of those muscles. They need calcium and phosphorus, again, to lay down the bone. This is when their growth plates start to calcify. It's called the closing of the growth plates or the closing of the knees. This is a crucial period when you want to make sure that from foal all the way up to now you have been getting this horse's feet trimmed well, because as these growth plates close, they're not going to be able to have much correction done in any kind of conformational problem. So again, the calcium and phosphorus is needed at this age because of the closing of the growth plates. Overweight yearlings and 2-year-olds who lack protein, vitamins, and minerals often develop into unsound adults because they're overweight, but their bones and their connective tissue have not been given the adequate building blocks to make a sound structure, and so they're tend to be more unsound. So as with your weanlings, you want to keep your yearlings and 2-year-olds a little lean so that their bones are still keeping up with the growth of their bodies. You don't want to have their diet contain too many of the simple carbohydrates such as sugar. Instead, you want them to be high in fiber so that they're getting their energy from the fiber source. And this way, again, they're not getting the quick energy to allow their body to grow where their bones can't keep up. You want them to have fiber, which is a slow and steady infusion of energy rather than the quick burst, allowing their bones to keep up with their body. So feeding for performance, the first thing that you need to feed him for is for energy. It takes an incredible amount of energy to do the jobs that we give these horses, so we need to make sure that the requirement is met. However, because they are working hard, they are also losing minerals in their sweat, and so they are also losing water in their sweat, and this needs to make sure that your water requirement is met as well as the mineral requirement for that they are losing. Plus, any concussion on the bones causes the bone to require more mineral in order to lay a stronger foundation for the structure of the skeleton. The protein is needed to keep up with the elongation and increase in size of the muscles of the working horse. And vitamins are needed for proper metabolism of fat, carbohydrates, and protein in the body, as well as for hormone production and key processes in bone structure growth. So adult horses in training or who are working require extra energy and nutrients to fuel all of their efforts. Remember that energy is the first thing that we balance for when we have a performance horse. A horse doing a lot of high-speed work requires much more energy than a horse doing slow work. Therefore, your horses that are working at a higher speed, i.e. race horses, need more energy than your trail horses. So quality hay and sufficient feed to meet the requirements of what this horse needs. We need to not confuse fitness with fat. We want to make sure that these horses are still on the body condition score of a 5 to a 6 so as not to put undue pressure on the joints or the skeletal structure and connective tissues of these horses. By working hard and having extra weight, these horses will put a lot of stress on all of the joints especially, but as the skeletal structure as well, because they're having to carry this extra weight. Quality hay is the basis of your diet in these horses. They need a lot of fiber, not only to keep their digestive system moving smoothly, but they need the slow infusion of energy from the digestion of the fiber in order to keep their energy levels up to work. Now, starches are important for those horses that are needing it for short bursts of energy, such as your reining horses, your barrel horses, or your cutting horses. But for those horses doing longer amounts of work, such as your endurance horses, your cross-country horses, or eventing horses, those type of horses definitely need your higher fiber content in order to get that slow infusion of feed. If you do have a sprinter type horse, those barrel racing, cutting, or reining type horses that are only working for short periods of time, a high starch diet is usually fed to him as it is a fast energy source. However, this can also lead to ulcers, founder, colic, any sorts of digestive upset. And in order to reduce that risk, you want to feed some antacid type salts like calcium carbonate or magnesium oxide or magnesium sulfate. This will reduce the risk of ulcers especially, but it will also reduce the risk of colic or founder because there's not breaking down that starch quite as quickly in the foregut. If you feed a high-fat diet to your endurance type horse, you need to make sure that your mineral balance is correct. Fat does not contain any of the minerals that is needed for strong bones or the hormones, so you need to make sure that you are aware of what your mineral content is in the rest of your feed in order to make sure he is getting a balanced mineral diet. Feeding for maintenance means you're feeding for basic life functions. He doesn't need the extra energy to go around a barrel or jump a jump. He's basically walking out in the pasture, or he's pacing in a stall. Basically, he's not doing anything extra. So you're feeding low energy, low to mid-level protein, lower levels of vitamins and minerals. He doesn't need high amounts of starch because he doesn't need the quick energy source. A very high fiber diet is needed for the maintenance horses. And remember that a horse has a small stomach, so if he can be fed over the course of a day a high fiber diet, he's going to get all of the energy that he needs from that in the fiber for his bodily functions. Now, he's not growing muscle, he's not gaining muscle mass, so he doesn't need a high level of protein, and because he's not working and sweating off all the minerals, he doesn't need as much of the mineral content as well. And with him not working, he doesn't have the concussion to the bones that require additional minerals to keep those bones strong. He doesn't need as many vitamins because he's not having to worry about the metabolism of fats and carbohydrates and proteins as much as the performance horse or the growing horse. So he just needs enough to maintain his body weight at this time. Now, a maintenance horse, of course, ideal body weight is a 5 to a 6. However, keeping a horse at a 4 is okay. If you get any higher on the body condition score of a 7, you are putting undue stress on the joints and the skeleton, and of course the connective tissue of the body. So you want to keep your horse in good body condition score, whether he is a performance horse, growing horse, or a maintenance horse. Now, for your senior horse, you need to remember that his digestive efficiency is decreasing after the age of 18. You need to make sure that you are feeding feeds that is easily digestible. You need to make sure that he has teeth in order to chew what you are feeding him, and if he does not, you need to correct that by giving him a senior feed that is easy to chew with or without teeth, or it can be watered down to make soup and he can literally slurp up his dinner. When you're feeding a senior horse, you are feeding because of the digestive inefficiency, but you're also feeding to maintain his weight and energy level. You're also feeding for those joints. So you want to make sure that you have a high fiber diet to give him that slow infusion of energy that he needs. The high fat is easily digestible and will help him maintain his weight, plus provides a little bit of lubricant for those joints. He needs a moderate amount of protein just to keep the muscle that he has healthy, and a moderate level of vitamins and minerals in order to maintain his life processes. Most senior horses are not worked very hard, so you don't have to worry about feeding them for a high energy level. However, if they are still being worked, you need to take in their digestive inefficiency as well as their workload to make sure that they are getting fed enough so that they will maintain their body weight. Senior horses may also have deteriorating kidneys, so it is best to feed small amounts of high quality protein rather than a lot of low-grade protein. Alfalfa can be a little hard on horses simply because there is so much protein. And when you get an excess of protein, remember that it is changed to urea in the liver, and then it is excreted through the kidneys, and this can be hard on both the liver and the kidneys in a senior horse. So you want to feed him just for the amount of protein that he needs rather than an excess of it. I cannot stress enough that dental care is essential in these horses. If he doesn't have any teeth, you need to make sure that you are feeding him a diet that will adapt to his not having any. Breeding horses. So when you're feeding for breeding horses, you're feeding for optimal reproduction. This is for the hormone processes, for the energy required to sustain the semen production, or for ovulating eggs. Body condition score of a 6 is ideal for most breeding animals. This will allow for them, especially breeding stallions who get restless during the breeding season, to pace or run or get nervous, whatever it is that they do during the breeding season. If you keep them at a body condition score of a 6, they can do all of those unnecessary movements that they're going to do because they're stallions. And yet they're still going to have the energy to produce the semen that you need for your breeding. It does take quite a bit of energy in order to ovulate an egg, so if you keep your breeding mares at a body condition score of 6, they will be able to ovulate efficiently. And this is good because you want to make sure that you get them bred on the first try. They must have sufficient vitamins and minerals for the reproduction. Again, most of your vitamins will tie into the hormones and the ovulation and semen production in your breeding animals, and if you are shy of any of the vitamins, it will cause your production to decrease. There are a few of the minerals, such as zinc and copper, that are loosely tied to reproduction, so if you don't have an adequate amount of the minerals as well, then your production will decrease as well. Again, for your stallions, you're feeding mostly for their energy because they can get a little nuts during the breeding season. Some are nice and quiet, most will pace and whinny and do whatever other unnecessary movements that they need in order to maintain that they are a stallion.